Hey, let's do a mini funk guitar lesson in the style of Nile Rodgers. Stick around. Hey, how you doing? Chris here, back for another edition, another episode, and I hope you're doing very well. It's good to have you back here. Thanks so much for coming along to this video. I hope you've had a great day. I've had a good day. I've been to the local store today, and I got myself a plant, as you can see behind me, and I'm just getting the studio into shape a little bit, and gradually tidying things up, organising things. Not quite sure what I'm going to do back there just yet, but it's going to shape up nicely. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, practicing a bit of funk tonight, and you may be thinking, like, what is he doing, playing the same thing over and over and over again? Well, you know, that's the thing about funk. It is about repetitive grooves and about being in the pocket, and it needs practice. You know, it's playing funk is all about fitting in that pocket with the band. You know, a lot of the funk guitar elements that some of the really cool cats play. You know, like take Nile Rodgers for example. You know, what an amazing player. You know, beast of a funk player, and actually huge influence on so many players. But like when you listen to him just practicing, you know, like with just the guitar without the band, it's like, and I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it doesn't sound all that. But you put it together with a rhythm section, and like, man, like it's just unbelievable. It's just so good. You know, and I love that style of playing. You know, and it's what I enjoy playing most of all these days. Fortunate to have some great brothers around me in my band, totally funked up. And we do funk versions of all sorts of songs, funk arrangements. I'd like to do even more funk arrangements, if I'm honest. But we cater to lots of weddings and parties. But I remember when I first got into playing funk, you know, like I came out of this band with... I went through the punk route, then the indie route, the goth route, and then sort of got into heavier playing once I discovered these heavy players and these crazy cats in the late 80s and early 90s that were playing rock guitar and metal guitar, and I went down that road for a long time and was shredding and complete with long hair. And at the time I remember I'd come out of the military. I was in the Royal Navy for a while. I came out of the military and I... because I left school when I was 16, I didn't hang around. I just wanted to get working. And I remember coming out of the military because I was mad for playing music, and I was in a band, and it just didn't work. And I enrolled in a course which is an A-level music. You know, like ordinarily it's 16 to 18-year-olds in UK. But this particular moment in time, I was like 20, I think 21. and I was with some of the 16, 17-year-olds. So I went as an adult student. And it blew my mind, like I was studying classical music, music theory, notation, ear training. And it really opened my mind up to music as a discipline, actually. There was a couple of other cats on the course. One was a guy called Gareth O'Neill, another guy called Dave Whitford. Gareth was a drummer. Dave was a bass player. Dave now is like on the Ronnie Scott circuit, the jazz circuit, playing upright bass. Predominantly, like an absolute beast of a bass player, and back then, he was like knocking out Donna Lee by Jaco Pastorius, and unbelievable. So being surrounded by those cats, I used to go into the music block at lunchtime, and they used to be in there like playing all lunchtime, drums and bass together, knocking out grooves. A lot of the Chili Peppers and just amazing stuff. The band leader at the time was a chap called Bob, big influence on me. And those cats, they introduced me to a lot of stuff, particularly Bob, a lot of funk stuff, a lot of 70s, some fusion, like a lot of TV composers. Music's using and some of the guitarists like Larry Carlton and George Benson came along. All these kind of cats that I'd never really heard of before, and it blew my mind. Cornell Dupree, who played a lot with Donny Hathaway, another big favorite of mine. And the big thing about that was that I was just blown away by guitar parts. Then it became not about being flashy or fancy or anything like that. It just became about holding your own in a band of excellent musicians. Because I was like the new boy. I was a guy like who was I was shredding, and I had to sit into this working band, get given these chord charts, and off to a gig we go and have to sort of play them. And it was an amazing discipline, and it stuck with me ever since. Really, that kind of working ethos in a band, and making the song sound good. We had some great times together, and I think I mentioned it in another episode just recently that we ended up doing some holiday camps and Butlins, and we had a great time. We did all sorts of gigs. It was great. And even some of the venues were big, some of them were small, and even the small ones that didn't have an audience because it wasn't promoted, we'd still have an amazing time because we just loved playing. It was all about listening to each other, playing together, and making the song sound the best we could. And that's where a lot of my love for funk and rhythm playing came from. And it was just sort of sitting in the pocket and letting the song breathe. And that's what I was kind of doing tonight. So this kind of, if you want to do this, this is in a kind of I first started playing the song Upside Down, Diana Ross, that riff, that kind of thing, but I've morphed it slightly and changed some of the chords. So it's like a G minor to a B flat and a C to an F. G minor, B flat, C and an F. But I've changed that around, and I'm putting this kind of G minor ninth, almost like a James Brown thing, to then a C7. That sort of just cascades down onto the B flat, then I'm hitting the C7. And then I'm just picking out individual notes from the chords, basically the fifth of the F, up to the G, and then back to the F, so it's the seventh of the G minor. But what I've been working on tonight is just concentrating on playing 16s, because you don't have to play 16s, but a lot of funk players will play that 16ths constantly in their right hand here. Then just pick out notes or lay off to almost not hear it, and just pick out the notes, one of the notes from the 16th pattern. And when you do that, you get really accurate timing. And I was watching a video about that Corey Wong was talking about, a guy that plays with Wolfpack. And that's what he does. He'll just sit down with a metronome and practice sixteenths, and it's almost machine-like. It's just so tight. So that's what I would totally recommend with you guys, is to put on something like I've done, put on a drum track, maybe like a bass part, and just try and sit in the groove and play along, so it sounds smooth, with attitude. I mean, you need the attitude with funk as well. You need the right sound. I'm actually using a real, I almost call it a crispy sound. I'm on the neck pickup actually. And when you listen to the guitar on its own, it sounds a bit like, a bit sparse sometimes. Obviously, if I put it to the neck pickup, you get that kind of warmth. But when you put it in a band context, you want that percussive edge, that sort of, that to parp out, that to snap out. So what I'm doing here, if you could just imagine sixteenths, I'm playing the first four all together and then pulling off for the last one. But once I've started this pattern on my right hand, I keep it going. So if I put this in context with the song, that's probably the best way to do this. You can notice my hand continually on 16th here. Stop that again. Like, what I'm thinking about here all the time is the timing. It's it can be easy to run off when you're playing sixteenths and sort of gallop away. But I'm really conscious of that. I'm listening to the snare drum. I'm like not trying to get ahead of that. So I'm really trying to hold back and think about the space. Even though it's sixteenths, there's still space between them. So I'm taking the bar and dividing it up into 16, right? Sixteenths. And I'm really thinking about where the snare's coming, where the bass drum is. And now that's a great practice to do. If you've got like a drum loop, I've just put this in my digital audio workstation, a drum loop and a basic bass part. But it becomes trickier when you play with guys in a band, because you've got all these other elements. You've got human elements, right? With a machine, it's easy. It's on the beat, right? But when you bring these other elements in with a band, you might have to push it a little bit to get the snare. You might have to lay off a little bit, depending on the drummer and how his or her groove, sits. So you need to be conscious of that, and that's where you get that kind of lovely feel with bands, like that. That's where the feel comes from, that whether it's pushed or pulled, and it can change through the songs, you don't want a song to be metronomic all the way through when you're playing live, you want the groove, you want the human elements to come in, and when you can all sit on that same groove together, man, it's a beautiful thing, but it is a discipline. So it's not as straightforward as some might think we're playing funk. It is an attitude. It's a state of mind. It's a rhythm. You got to be a guru in rhythm playing, right? So that's what I say to you. That's what I do. Just do it one more time before we wrap up, so you can hear it again. 16s. notice what I'm doing there again is like now and again I might put in a little ghost note, you know, like predominantly I'm just trying to pick up the single notes, these bits. But sometimes I just might put a ghost note in to add a little slightly different feel. You just doing like the upstroke and just making it, just glancing it. So you can just play around with that, and predominantly a lot of stuff that I'm doing here is palm muting a lot. You know, you when I'm playing this riff, you know, like it's practically all four fingers are muting something here. You know, so you've got to get into that kind of that way of thinking, you know, keeping it nice and muted, and it takes practice. You know, that's why just playing something as simple as this over and over again and perfecting it is I find it really important. You know, and so I'm sort of making a conscious effort to do more and more of that, because ultimately you know what I'm trying to do is just to make it sound smooth. And pick out the notes that I want, where and when and when and where I want. Yeah. So there we go. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like the video, give it a share. It really helps. I'm doing this for you guys. Thanks ever so much.